where we help you go from fed up to faith fueled, helping you to become the wise divine women that you've been called to be. Today, I have Miss Monica Parker, and she is an identity coach. I'm so excited to have her here because I think on our road of menopausal transition, sometimes we lose our identity in what we're trying to achieve in life. I know I did myself. It's kind of this, sort of, I don't know what to call it. You kind of lose yourself in the things, right?
Yeah.
But welcome to the show, Monica.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. It's
Thank
it's a
you.
joy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, what brought you on this journey of becoming an identity coach and helping women and men, I'm sure, find themselves again?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure men are welcome to learn from me, but I've only worked with women as a coach, which is really what my passion is to help women feel like themselves, to be themselves again, to feel like they are making progress in their lives and all outside of the all or nothing pendulum swing that we tend to ride when it comes to anything self help or wellness oriented. And how I got to that point is largely because of my own struggles. And I'm sure that's a lot of what has inspired your passion too, Dana, is just our own struggles help us put us on this path where we want to help other women who are facing similar things or to avoid those struggles altogether. And mine came with a couple midlife crises a little early. I tend to do things early. It's turning out I'm turning 40 on Sunday and I've already hit a couple midlife crises. So,
Yeah.
first at 20, actually, second early at 30. And both of them had to do with me being a perfectionist without fully realizing it. The first time I knew I was because I wanted to be. And I was that overachieving stereotype, getting straight A's, doing great at college, except I really wasn't. I was struggling with multiple eating disorders and with that a whole host of mental issues that really came up to all rose up to really drag me down to a pretty low place. And
Mm-hmm.
then I spent the next 10 years being really afraid of trying. I thought the only way to grow was that all. And I had paid a heavy, heavy price for that all, and I didn't want to pay it again. But then
Right.
I found I was also stuck at 30 and stuck because I'd been on the sidelines for years. And I had a great therapist point out to me that I was a perfectionist still, even as the underachieving kind. And that's what kicked off now, been about 11 years of deep diving perfectionism, what it really is, what it really looks like, how there's a spectrum, how it's not just this overachieving stereotype, but how no matter where you are on the spectrum, it costs you. And in many ways, it costs you the progress you're looking for. So the last 10 years, especially, has been a big experiment on what does it look like to grow outside of the perfectionistic model. And that's what brings me here today.
Wow, that's amazing. Can you dive a little deeper into what you mean by the perfectionist model? Like, what does that look like? I hear what you're saying. I can understand it. I know what perfectionism means. But what exactly, how do we identify that, or how do we recognize sort of signs and symptoms that that may be something we need to consider and, use you as a coach to help us walk through this?
Sure. Perfectionism can be a coping mechanism, especially those who have experienced trauma. For most people, even those who have had trauma, it's a misplacement of identity. It's placing our sense of self on our outcomes, whether we have them or we don't. And if that looks like you hustling, if it looks like you paying those big prices, like I just shared, if it looks like success at all costs, if it looks like grinding, if it looks like self discipline and willpower, and today's my day, and I'm the only one in charge of my life, that's part of it. A lot of shame is a part of it. And or if it looks like fear and procrastination, if it
Mm-hmm.
could even look like laziness, okay, or lack of willpower. If you are placing your sense of self off of what you can or cannot achieve, then you are always setting yourself up to fail. And perfectionists believe a lot of lies. We believe that one, perfection is even possible. Two, we believe that the only way to achieve is all from all or nothing. There's no
Mm-hmm.
in between, there's no allowances for being human, there's no nuances of life accounted for. And either that means we stay in that that hamster wheel of it, or we stay on the sideline because we think I don't want to do that, or I can't do that, or I just got burnt out from doing that. And I think if you're looking for signs of it, I would ask yourself to think about your own history
Yeah.
and times in your life where you feel like you have believed those lies that perfection is possible. The only way to grow is through that sheer grit, self-discipline kind of model. And ask yourself what prices you paid. Are there times where your relationship suffered, or your health, or your mental health, or maybe your spiritual well-being, or anything like that that you can think of that you were paying prices to being in pursuit of proving your worth?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
as part of that, the times where you have either burnt out and landed in the nothing place, or maybe you've been always afraid. How I would also think about, just in general, how much does shame drive what you do in a day? What's that inner voice like? If it's pretty shame centered, I'm betting you're a perfectionist, because perfectionists thrive off of shame, regardless of where they are on the spectrum.
Right.
Thinking of just like, how critical am I to myself? How harsh am I? How often do I start Monday? How often do I wait until Mondays or January 1st, or, those kind of
Yeah.
milestone
There's
moments
always, I'll do that
to
tomorrow. I'll do
begin?
that tomorrow. Yeah.
That's right. And then I
Yeah.
would say one other thing too is it's surprising, um, cost of perfectionism is a disconnection. How disconnected are you from other people in your life? Do they get to see the real you? Do they get to really know you? Do you let
Hmm.
people in? Do they get to see your weaknesses? And with yourself, do you trust yourself? Do you
Right.
only look outside for other experts, solutions, plans, programs that are meant to fix everything? Are you afraid to believe yourself and what you think may be right for you or wrong for you? If that lack of trust is pretty prevalent, then that's also, I think, a big sign of perfectionism. So let's start there.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a lot to take in,
Mm-hmm.
and exactly. And it's interesting because as you were speaking, it was just like, but it's hard to say if that was just me in, trying to catch up after raising children, or
Yeah.
is it, well, in a lot of cases when you're going through a hormonal transition, it's kind of, you have to keep yourself on track, right? And you want to achieve these great things, and then it's like it becomes too much and overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up with things. So I can really recognize a lot of those character traits in myself, and it was hard to determine, like, is it just the hormones that make me disconnected, or is it
Yeah.
this perfectionism that's in place, that I feel disconnected with things, right? I'm sure there's a lot of things that play with that
Oh,
for
for
many
sure.
women, but I think that's a wonderful way to look at things, and especially recognizing it in sort of the younger groups when they're trying to make their way up the ladder and or be a successful entrepreneur, and even for us women starting over and doing our passion projects. It's a fine line with things, right?
Yeah, everything's a fine line. And I would say if it's a question of, it's rarely this or that,
Mhm.
and I know this, this, right? It's
Yeah.
it's it tends to be a conglomeration of a lot of different things. And perfectionism is both transcendent and pervasive, meaning it transcends particular life circumstances or even diagnoses or seasons of life. And it's pervasive, meaning it's sneaky. It's kind of just
Mhm.
like this undercurrent to the waves you see on top. It may be driving a lot of behaviors, it may be exacerbating different things, including, where you're at with hormones or your life season. So it's less of like the one and only reason why you are struggling, and it's more of part of the reason.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I love that. So how did this, I mean, I understand the, where you were and you've created this, but how do healthy habits come into play? Like,
Yeah, I know. Isn't that a tricky thing? It's funny
yeah.
because initially, as the overachieving perfectionist, like my whole life was about habits. Like it was a very regimented life. I mean, my planner looked like I was going to go to war every day. It was so bound by these, in many ways, not just self-imposed because, I was a college student going to school and working and,
Hmm.
trying to, it was a lot of it was my circumstances. But that's habits were a big part of my life then, and then they kind of fell to the wayside after in pursuit of my own recovery. I could show up with good habits for my responsibilities. I was a middle school teacher, and then I was a stay-at-home mom for many years before I started my work again. And for everything else, I could show up with the habits that would help those things. But for myself, everything was on the back burner. One, because I thought that's the way it should be, and two, it just felt easier because
Yeah.
how could I prioritize my own wants and needs or ambitions? How could I dream again? Because I thought the only way again was all or nothing, and habits was part of that too. I thought to be a habit person, you had to look a particular way. I had to be that type A with the planner with every minute accounted for every day. My life had to look like a robot where it's one habit after the next all day, every day. And what really brought me back to habits was actually the identity piece. I
Hmm.
was trying to separate who is Monica then. Like if all of my roles and my responsibilities, anything on the exterior were to be swept away, who am I? And I did a lot of work on that, especially with that therapist that I worked with for many years.
Right.
And and that was great. I actually was healing in ways I hadn't, and hand in hand with this whole experiment of like, what if I just told myself I didn't have to be good at something? I could try something. I could fail at something. I could be nice to myself instead of mean to myself to change. So that was kind of happening too alongside that identity piece. But then I hit a plateau, Dana, and the plateau was that I knew who I was, but my daily life was not supporting that
Right.
identity. Like if I knew that relationships really mattered to me or that creativity was a big part of who I am, and it is, but my day-to-day life never created space for those things, and that was a real problem. And then it even became more basic than that. I needed to sleep for the
Sleep.
first time in my
Why?
life. I know. For the first
What?
time in my life, I finally had to own that I needed to sleep in order to
Right.
be that person I knew I really was. So at first I did all those things of reading the bestsellers out there and installing them and then failing and then trying because I was in that whole experiment of progress outside of perfection, trying again and failing, trying again and failing. But then I was coaching women too. This was several years into my work, and they were making great strides and getting to know themselves and challenging that inner perfectionist and working messy and having more compassion and all of that. But they also hit a plateau of realizing my day-to-day life is not helping me be this person I know I am. And they had
Right.
the same things. Like if well, I by that time I had been, a certified coach, and a big part of my certification was within habits, and I was, well, let's use these methods, and they were failing too. And that's what really gave me the courage to step back and think, well, I know these women. I know they're not
Hmm.
lazy. I know they're smart. I know they're capable.
Yeah.
I know that they do so much in a day. I know that it's not them. So if it's not them, and if it's not me, what is it? And that's when I had my own eureka moment, which is more of like a series of moments where I realized that the people we were learning these habit methods from were all men. And, you know, that's where I have to
Yes.
say we love men. Men are great,
Yes.
and we have good men in our lives. And also these methods, there's a lot of good there. We don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
But these methods have been taught for forever, for literal decades, and almost I would say 95% by men whose lives are different than our lives. And that all
Yeah.
comes down to invisible labor. And it also can come down to hormones, which you're the expert in, right? But if we were to just take invisible labor alone, this is a decades long research, a topic of research as well. And women do a lot more and a lot less time. We have less energy. We have less support. And the methods that we have, while taught with good intention and with the belief that they're gender neutral, they can't be because they're one written by men who do not share our lives and largely studied on men. And like, even one of the most popular books out there, the ratio is 7 to 1 in the case studies that they share in their book, men to women. And
Right.
we don't even know if the people that they're sharing, the women in the stories, are actual women, because that's a common thing in self-help books, is to make up characters or to assign a gender or a name to someone maybe that you've worked with.
Right.
So anyway, that's I just went on a big long tangent, but what the real heart of this is I didn't expect to get into habit formation at all, but it came from necessity, and it also came from my desire to help women. And that's
Right.
what then started another many years work of trying to figure out, well, what does habit formation look like for a busy woman who carries the largest mental and even physical labor in the home and in the workplace and the communities than her male counterparts? What does habit formation look like for a woman who has way more interruptions? Okay, who has way more urgency bound tasks in front of her?
Hmm.
For a woman who has less time and energy, which is another word for willpower. What does it look like? And that's the answer is what I've come to. It's called the sticky habit method, and I've been taught it for years. It's not just an anecdotal like here's what's worked for me, so it'll work for you. I've taught this to thousands of women. I've coached hundreds of women with using this model, and it works because it's not a all or nothing black and white model of this
Right.
is exactly A to Z how I'm trying to be like a man form habits. It's way more intuitive, it's way more
Right.
flexible, it's way more gentle, and because of that, it's far more sustainable.
Right. Which is necessary because for women, we have to have the ability to be flexible and turn on a dime,
That's right.
depending on the needs in the current situation or the needs that we don't foresee in the next hour, right? Those things
Yes.
change. That's just life. But we have to have a sense of accomplishment at the end of the week, right? And then this guilt that happens when we don't check off all the boxes by the end of the day.
Yeah, and I want to point out one other thing too. When people hear invisible labor, and I'm talking about women, when they hear that, a lot of them count themselves out for two reasons. One, because they don't have kids in the home anymore, or maybe never did. And they think, oh, invisible labor equates child rearing. And it does, but it also doesn't. It's anything related to home and community management. Who plans your work parties? Okay,
Hmm.
who's running the church gatherings?
Hmm.
Who's cooking the food for it? Who's helping their neighbors? Okay,
Hmm.
it's not just child rearing. And the other part that tends to make women say, "Well, that doesn't apply to me," is they do have very supportive spouses and or partners.
Right.
Okay, but that's where they often forget the mental load, which research shows is 2/3 of the labor involved. So if you have a great, let's say, husband in your life who you would count more as a partner, and when you're both home from work, you both roll up your shirt sleeves and you get to work, who's largely directing that work?
Hmm.
If it's you, you are carrying 2/3 of the labor. You are conceiving of the problems that need to be addressed. You are planning on how to do it and you're directing it, which is
Right.
all internal. This comes from Eve Rotsky's research in Fair Play. Anyway, it still accounts for more time than your male counterparts. I was just listening to something today that said research that is showing that men have 400 more leisure hours than women do a year. That's what we're living out here. So again, these aren't bad men. They're bigger problems than just us
Yeah.
and just in our singular homes, but our lives are different. And
Hmm.
we have to own that we are doing so much more in a single day. And that's going to have to affect how we then form habits for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It is, you're like talking about invisible labor or you're talking to that 2/3 aspect. Even if I am resting, I still have to remember where everything is.
That's right.
You
Yeah.
know, like
And what's coming next and who needs to be
what's coming
where and
next and where did you put this and where did you put that? And it's
yeah.
just, yeah, I get it. It's that multitasking gift that we sort of have. And I sometimes find that women have a better um, foresight in remembering where things are throughout the house, right, than men
Yeah.
do. It's kind of a visual memory trick,
Yeah,
I
I, I
suppose.
I've tried to learn more about that, and the research is pretty mixed on it. If
Oh,
this is
yeah.
this biology or is this
I
like
don't know.
circumstance? And
Yeah.
one of my friends pointed out, regardless of what it is, in large part, even the most capable of men in our lives weren't raised to care about the things that we've been raised to care about and notice
Very
and do.
true. Yeah.
And so, and I think that's really helpful to know. because again, it's not like just a character issue. It really is. It's larger than just
Hmm.
us.
Hmm. No, it is, and it is. It reminds us as women that we should be changing the habits of raising our sons differently
Yeah.
as well, right? Or our grandsons as well, to have a
Hmm.
bit of foresight and or a bit of broadness to their activities when it comes to when you leave work. It's a bigger picture. It's not just come home and off you go to sports or dinner's on the table. It's the broader things and thinking ahead, or how do I say that? I guess it is having foresight into things.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to ask. It's a broader thought and things happen.
It's being
Yeah.
aware, it's noticing, it's taking
Yeah.
ownership of those things. Yeah, and I have 5 kids, and my last 4 are all boys. So I think about this every day, and
Yeah.
I do think they are in particular set up for more success in that regard because my husband is way more aware than many men, and it's been something that we've evolved to for sure in our marriage, and largely
Hmm.
because of circumstances too. I mean, for many years in our marriage, he worked in San Francisco, and we lived about 45 minutes away, and we didn't see him 6 out of 7 days, and now we both work from home,
Yeah.
and but it still has required shifts, and nearly 20 years of conversations and figuring it out together.
Yeah, and that's really important too. It's part of that communication. It's not only creating that ability to have better communication skills in a work situation,
Yeah.
understanding our perfectionism,
Mm.
creating better habits so that we can have better achievable goals, not only for ourselves but for our teams as well.
I like
But
that.
in essence, it creates a better team or a communication effort from home as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Eve Rotsky, one of the main leaders in this space, she strongly teaches that in sharing about invisible labor, we're not doing it to devalue this work because
Hmm.
it is essential labor. It does matter, and in fact, the world's GDP literally depends on this labor,
Yeah.
literally. And we've seen that in Iceland in 1979. All women in Iceland went on a strike, from stay-at-home moms to flight attendants to business leaders. Like, all the women stopped work for a whole day, and in a pursuit of getting equal pay, and the entire economy in Iceland came to a screeching halt. The
Hmm.
entire economy, which is so fascinating. But one of the things that she does say, I'm going back to Erotsky, is that the home is the most important organization on the earth,
Yeah.
and we've got to better value it that way. And as part of that, better value every person's contribution and their own time. And that
Right.
also ties into habits too, I think. And that's largely how I want women to think about habits differently, is it's not just about what more should I get done in a day, or can I fit in or squeeze in. Although, learning about habits will help with that. I really want women to reclaim their lives as their own too. That if their
Right.
time matters, so do they as part of it. So does them taking care of themselves, of having their own interests and hobbies, of developing themselves, of being able to lay down and rest, to read a book.
Mhm.
Watching a show can be a habit. I mean, it truly is about a different way of both seeing habits, and as part of that, caring for yourself. It's the ultimate form of self-care.
Right, right. And that's one of the things that I talk about as well, in this sense that for women to really understand self-care, you know, taking time for themselves, doing lymphatic
Mm,
movement and uh, doing breathing techniques, things like that. But if your day is not organized well, it's not going to work. And if you have a checklist that's an impossible checklist to do,
yes.
it's not going to work well either. And so creating better habits work hand in hand. And I never really considered it in that perspective. I'm just, whenever you can, take a breath. And whenever you finish the day, do some lymphatic work and,
Yeah.
always remind yourself of your greatness. But if they're caught in a this perfectionism, then they're not going to be able to savor the moment or capture the essence of pausing for a second,
Yes.
because it has to be timed and it has to be, on the sticky note and it has to be in the day timer.
and in the exact same way day to day. That's another big factor.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
if I know I've talked quite a bit, but if I could try to make this a little more practical for the women who are listening, like if they're thinking, okay, I can believe that invisible labor does take up a lot more time and energy than maybe I realized, even myself. And that may mean I need to do habits differently than I've designed them in the past. Well, what does that actually look like? This is where I would start. A lot of how we view habits is that you think of this consistency rule. You have to be consistent, meaning you have to be perfect with them. You do the same habit in the exact same way at the same time, day after day. And when you're forming a habit, you do that for 21, 28, or 30 days, and then you have the habit. Voila. Well, on day 25, someone gets sick. Okay.
Mhm.
Or day 17, baseball season starts. Or you're having a real low day. Maybe you have a hormone crash or you start a period
Yeah.
or something like that, right? Um, we have to redefine consistency and then we have to design our habits to match that. So, consistency is not perfection. We're going to redefine it. Consistency is doing your best most of the time over time.
Mhm.
Your best is not perfection. Your best is your true, intuitive best. It's allowed to change day to day and season to season.
Right.
Most of the time, your target is more times than not, and you're playing the long game. That's over time. So, consistency, doing your best most of the time over time. Okay. With that, how do you actually form a habit? Think of one that you want. Maybe you want to do more movement. Okay, that's one of the
Mhm.
most common ones people want.
Right.
Sure, you could do 70 hard. That's really popular right now. I don't know if you've even heard of this, but you
Oh,
could go do
been there,
something as
done that.
crazy as
Yeah,
that.
been there.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And maybe it would be great, and maybe it would be exactly what you need. But for most people, that's too much too soon and too absent of reality. So let's say you're going to design a habit that is ideal, but still true to your season for movement. And instead you think, 4 days a week, I'd love to just go on a walk outside, get those endorphins, get the fresh air,
Mhm.
think a kind of walking meditation. Okay, 4 days a week. And on an ideal day, I could do a 60-minute walk.
Right.
That's great. And it's still an ideal if you're not doing that yet. So, what you also need is a baseline version of the ideal. The baseline is the smallest and simplest version that you can do on a less than ideal day. And I'm talking about like a really less than ideal day. Like, let's say the energy is really low, the hormones went off, or let's say work is really busy or you're not feeling well. What's that version of the habit that you can do? That's your baseline. And let's say for this woman, she says, you know what? I can for sure do a 10-minute walk. It
Mhm.
sounds
Mhm.
so small, but that's the kind of baseline that you want.
Right.
A baseline creates built-in flexibility you need in order to be consistent. Okay. If habits are helpers, you're going to get a lot more help than you think from your baseline. A lot more help. And with
Right.
that, you'll also have the consistency you need to build more towards your ideal. In that moment, it often happens organically. You think, okay, it's a baseline day. I'm going to go on my 10-minute walk. And what do you know? You can do 15 or 20, and you come home feeling like you're an Olympian because you
Yeah.
did more than the baseline, right? But also with that consistency, then you have the foundation to build on. And pretty soon, not only will you be able to build up more towards your ideal, more days than not, you'll also build up that baseline too. On your worst day, it may be 30 minutes now. And that's the
Yeah.
beauty of it. So, if we're thinking practically, that's one of the many ways I try to teach women on how to do that. On a day where you have less time, energy, or less support, or it's just one of those days, what is a different version of the habit? And I would say, even seasonally, let's say a 60-minute walk is great during the spring or fall, but where you live, that's not going to work during the summer or the cold winter.
Yep.
You're allowed to do the same habit in a different way according to that season. So maybe movement now looks like 30 minutes of yoga or
Mhm.
walking on the treadmill, or maybe it looks like punching something. I don't know. You can go get a punching bag.
You can, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And it is the flexibility of things, and it's just that sense of you've set a challenge for yourself, do part of it, do all of it, do whatever you need, but it's that momentum that needs to
that's
happen
right.
so the things keep rolling. right? And
Yep.
again, that whole 15 minutes or an hour, right? I even have them people, people love having the rebounder, right? The little mini trampolines because it
Oh,
helps
yes.
helps in
Yes.
so many ways. And they're like, I don't think I can get 20 minutes in. I'm like, okay, first off, you can't do 20 minutes off the hop. I don't want you to hurt
Yeah,
yourself,
you're
right?
gonna pull something.
Exactly. But you can go on it 20 times a day for 1 minute,
Hmm.
right? So it's again, you're at least getting the momentum, you're building stability within yourselves, and people can't go just do an hour of Pilates. It's terrible. It's hard. So
Yeah.
you have to at least get walking, at least get stretching, at least start building that confidence within yourself that you're able to do it. An hour is a long time to go for a walk when you have a busy schedule. So I love how you've said, just get out for 10 minutes, just get out for 15 minutes. It will grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything grows. And I also am gonna go back to the the purpose of habits is not about productivity. Again, it can be part of that. It can be helpful to that. Habits' only job is to support us.
Hmm.
Their
Hmm.
only job is to serve us. We don't serve habits, they serve us. So that means we're allowed to design them in ways that actually match who we are, our season, our wants, our needs. And
Right.
with that, even the baselines carry a lot of power. Like if I'm going to apply that to journaling, I had one woman who messaged me and she said, for years, I have wanted to be a journaler. And I always had this kind of marker in my mind that to be a journaler, I had to write for 20 minutes a day. And she just thought 20 minutes sounds simple, but she could never do it. And then she gave herself the baseline of 5 minutes. And she said, Monica, not only for the first time in my life am I a journaler, I've actually discovered I only need to journal for 5 minutes. That's all I truly need. It's giving me
Hmm.
what I
Hmm.
actually need from journaling. And you're going to find that about a lot of habits, I think. You don't need it to be as intensive with time or
Right.
energy as maybe you think. We're kind of playing, we're letting other people's prescriptions set us up to fail. And
Right.
instead, if we know habits are helpers, we can design them in ways we're making our own prescriptions. And
Hmm.
that sets
Hmm.
us up for a lot
And I
more
think the
success.
the thing that I remind women also is that the activity has to bring you joy.
Hmm.
That is the biggest thing. If you think you want we've been told we need to lift weights to keep muscle and bone, but it does not bring you joy. It is
Yeah,
terrible. Yeah, then don't do it. To go dance in the kitchen, right?
exactly.
Go jump on a trampoline, go for a walk, go for a swim, learn dancing. There's so many different things that we can do to increase our activity for so many health reasons, but in creating better habits for ourselves, this is separating ourselves and growing within ourselves, right?
Hmm. Well, and I'll just bring it full circle since we started most with the identity piece. I really strongly believe that identity is a missing piece of the habit puzzle. And I think it's one of the biggest pieces. I actually think it's the
Mhm.
board that the puzzle goes on. So much of how we do habits affects the way we see ourselves. And so much of the way we see ourselves affects the way we do habits. And it's kind of this chicken and egg scenario where as you're working on one, you get to work on the other. And that's what I found with another woman who always wanted to be a family history person and she could never quite get to it. And she had all these prescriptions that were working against her, and including these self-imposed prescriptions of I used to be able to do it this way and now I can't. So it doesn't
Mhm.
count if I do anything different. Well, when she designed this family history time to actually work for her, and she had a baseline version of it too, and she knew she was playing the long game, that it was more times than not, it was overtime. She was in tears over her family history time because she's not only was consistent in the habit, it shaped the way she saw herself because for her entire life she thought she was a non-finisher. Her entire life
Yeah.
she thought
Yeah.
she was a non-finisher. And now she was not only getting a habit that she'd always wanted or that she had had at some point and then dropped off from, she was able to see herself as someone who followed through.
Hmm. Hmm. That is a big thing. The follow through and not finishing things or is a big deal for a lot of women because you just run out of steam,
Yes.
right? And or something else becomes the bigger priority. And I really like that you've mentioned that sort of identity because we do not consider habit forming as an identity, and
Hmm.
nor do we nurture our identity in
Yes.
habits. But when you step back and look at the bigger picture, obviously the habits you're creating shapes your identity, but we don't consider it that way, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's because all along, you know, we have, again, we misplace our outcomes with our sense of self. So when our
Right.
outcomes are failures, we adopt this mentality that something's wrong with us, that we're to
Hmm.
blame, that we are the failure.
Right.
So if we're able to redefine a lot of what habits are and how they're formed, and if we're to do it differently, you're in for a wild ride internally. One,
Hmm.
because you're challenging all these, different ways of former ways of doing things, the right ways to do things. And as part of that, the ride is this internal one of being, well, maybe I actually have always been this type of person all along. I just
Hmm.
was set up to fail. Maybe
Hmm.
I'm not a failure. Maybe the methods are failing me.
Right. Right. It's interesting. One of the things that I was told in early in high school was that I'm not a very good writer, right?
Really?
No, but I'm a great speaker. So I'll just go, I roll with that, right? So it's, and thank goodness for AI, because now it just
It.
corrects me and does those things.
Yeah.
But I think that is certainly a very limiting belief. And if I would spend the 5 minutes journaling or 2 minutes journaling and, like I thought I would always do as well, I would have probably been a better writer. But myself, if I actually made time to journal, I would probably just talk it anyways, right?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have different strengths, right? But at the same
Hmm.
time,
Hmm.
in many ways, we disqualify ourselves from something that we wish we could
Yeah.
do because of that identity piece of being like, maybe I'm a bad writer's identity, or maybe it's even deeper, like I'm lazy, or
Hmm.
I don't like I don't like doing that, But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, you get to be the designer of not
Yeah.
just your habits, but of your life. And that comes back full circle again to what I was saying in the beginning is that's what we're doing here. In forming habits in these ways, we're also reclaiming our lives as our own.
Right. Which is the most important thing. I think at any age, it is one of the most important things is to really have that identity for ourselves and that sort of awareness and knowing our own goals so that we can be the best that we can be, not only for ourselves, our family, for the community.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, it should be ourselves first, but we never consider that. So we always have to remember to keep our cup full, right?
Mm-mm.
Our
Yes.
cup needs to be full. So it's it's in these things. So where can people find you, please, Monica? Like this is really
Sure.
important, and I know so many women struggle with this. Where can people find you?
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. Clearly, I have a lot to say
Yeah.
on
No,
this
my gosh, we
topic
could
in
talk
many
forever.
ways. I
Yeah.
really appreciate the time. Since they're already listening to a podcast, they should search for mine. It's called About Progress. And we have many episodes now. I think approaching 800 pretty soon here. Um, so come and follow me there. And then they can also check out my book that's coming out on habits, and it's called Sticky Habits. You can find it at stickyhabitsbook.com. We've got some
Mhm.
great pre-order bonuses going on right now,
Awesome.
if it's before September. And if after, that site will still be up, and it will link to all the different places you can order the book. So again, stickyhabitsbook.com.
And just to clarify, in the sticky habits and in your coaching skills, uh, it is coaching for women by
Hmm.
women.
Yes,
And that's really the defining factor.
it is. And it's a big part of, I talked about how many all of habit formation methods we learn from, especially
Yeah.
predominantly in the space, are written by men, and done in faith where they think that their methods are gender neutral. Mine is biased. It's meant to
Yes.
be.
Yes.
It's designed to be biased. It's by a woman. It's for women, and I think that's to its benefit.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so important, right? So even so if we step back and we look at hormone studies, a lot of that is on men, of course.
I know, isn't that
And
crazy?
it is crazy. Absolutely crazy. I'm glad things are
Yeah.
changing, to be
Yeah,
honest. So many things are
yeah, a
changing.
lot is
And
changing.
a lot is changing. And it's for women like you who are stepping back and recognizing, like intuitively recognizing that there's a fault in something, and then how you can gracefully change it so that it is far more usable for
Yeah,
women,
that's
right?
right.
Like it's no diss to the other research, it's no diss
No,
to the other habits because that's what made the world. That's where we are, right? Like it's so much goodness. But there has to be a change because women listen differently, they see differently, they taste differently, they act differently. So I love it. The Sticky Habits book coming out
thank
soon,
you.
September.
Yes, yes.
Awesome.
September is it's going to be here sooner than I than I'm realizing. But
In a
yes,
flash, I
yeah,
know that. I mean, it's middle of June already, so I
yeah.
understand completely. I understand. So, before I finish, or before we finish,
Hmm.
what is a word of wisdom that you've really held yourself true to?
It's that we can change. I know that sounds so simple, but one of the
Mhm.
biggest ways I've limited myself in my past is by believing that I couldn't change, that I was stuck, or that I was broken, or
Mhm.
something was wrong with me. And that's something I started challenging, now 11 years ago, and realizing, oh, I'm actually a perfectionist. I got to work on that. A big part of it is I've been challenging that whole belief. And I've learned time and time again that we all can change at
Right.
any time, at any age. We truly can change.
I love it. And age has no limit, right? Like
Yeah,
this is so important that we understand that we it doesn't matter what age you are, you can create new habits, you can find a new passion, you can become a new person, you can learn a new skill. This just unbelievable. Like I think
yeah,
in today's day and age, there's no limits, right?
that's right. And I'll say I've been surprised as a coach. Most of the women I coach are usually 20, 30 years older than me. And I always love that because
Mhm.
one, I think really cool when women are like, I can learn from other women. They don't have to be in the exact same stage as me.
Right.
I think that's really unique to us. But two, they do change.
Hmm.
It's truly never too late. I've coached a woman in her late 70s
Yeah.
who changed in really dramatic ways at that
Yeah.
age. It's never
It
too
is.
late.
I mean, because we're empty nesters, or because, maybe we're a widow, or because we've just finished a career and we still have lots of life left in us. And
There's
this is
so
where,
much. Yeah.
yeah, and this is where we work on our passion projects, or we work on something that we've been stewing on for years. So it's like you have time to do it. You have time to have a coach. You have time for someone to help you in creating it because we know better now, right?
Yes, that's a big part of it too. And I think we had the hindsight too of realizing it actually wasn't too late.
Yeah, it's
Or I
not
could
too
have
late.
changed. So maybe that can apply now. And it does. It can.
Yeah. Amazing. Honestly, we could talk for hours. I loved it. Well, I hope to have you back again because I think you have lots more to share. Now, remember, the podcast is called
Oh, my podcast. Yes, about progress.
About Progress. And what
Hmm.
is the book going to be called?
Sticky habits. That's just the
Sticky
shortened
Habits.
title. There's a longer subtitle, but we'll just say
Yep.
sticky habits.
Sticky Habits. And everyone can find you at Monica
Uh,
Parker.
so my name's Monica Packer.
Packer, sorry.
Sorry, it gets wrong all the time. So I usually don't even correct people. It doesn't matter. My site's aboutprogress.com.
Aboutprogress.com.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Thank you so much for being part of the show.
I was happy to. Thank you for listening. I loved
Oh,
this
absolutely.
conversation with you.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you, everyone. All that information will be in the show notes. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure, hoping that you did as well. Please reach out. Please get into all that pre-launch goodness before the book comes out. Thank you so much for being part of the show. See you
It's
soon.
my honor.